This segment of Labatt Buffalo Main Event is brought to you by
Kaz Electronics, your gadget source with referral rewards.
We're back on Labatt Buffalo Main Event. Brad Ryder along with Bob Gaughan, and we're joined this week by Paul Hamilton of WGR Radio, and Paul covers the Sabres predominantly. Brian Campbell cut off negotiations. I believe you were the first one to tell the world about it. What does this mean, Paul?
Well, I think it means Brian Campbell no longer is going to be a Buffalo Sabre. Now, Darcy Regier said if he has an offer, he's going to make it. And he's hoping maybe after a couple of weeks, Brian might reconsider or whatever. But what have the Sabres done that tells us that if he hits the end of the season, regular season, playoffs, whatever it may be, and is not signed, that he would re-sign with the Sabres? Two people, to my knowledge, have done that, and their names have been Patrick and Numminen. Other than that, unrestricted free agents who make it that far don't re-sign with the Buffalo Sabres.
Do you think that means that they're going to trade him, or would you trade him at
Absolutely.
the trade deadline?
I would. I don't know if they would, but I would. I mean, there's no sense not getting anything for the asset. And you can make a good deal. Look at what the Thrashers paid for Tkachuk last year, who went right back to St. Louis at the end of when he was done. Doug Waite, when he went to Carolina, went back to St. Louis. So theoretically, Campbell could come back to Buffalo after you trade him. That's not going to happen, but you make a good deal. I think you do the best you can because you understand that it's just not going to happen if you let it go that far.
When you do hear that Brian Campbell has ended negotiations with a team that generally doesn't negotiate contracts during the season anyway, I know it has changed a little bit, but is there anything shocking or earth-shattering about that? I mean, aside from really having it just put in our face, guess what? Here's another guy who's going to walk away.
Something aggravated him, offended him, something that he didn't like. The Sabres could have had him 5.25, and here we are again. I mean, it boggles my mind how the Sabres were so far ahead of the curve when it came to what the NHL was going to be like after the lockout. They were hugely ahead of everybody. The Bruins didn't even have any players when the lockout ended. They had 2 players. The Sabres knew what was going to happen and did a great job. But in contract negotiations, they're always 6-7 months behind the times. What they could have signed him for in the summer might be around what they are now. I don't know. I don't know what the Sabres have offered Brian Campbell, but I think they'd be more willing to sign him for $5.25 now. But in the summertime, that wasn't good enough. I just don't understand how, when it comes to contract negotiations, they don't seem to have that foresight.
Who's to blame for this? If you had to put it at somebody's feet, would it be Darcy? Would it be Larry? Would it be Golisano?
It's a group effort, and I know with Drury, talking to him, not this last trip to New York, but over the summertime, when all that confusion, he thought there was an offer on the table. The Sabres said no, it wasn't an offer. They needed to get their owner comfortable with what they wanted to offer Chris Drury, what Chris Drury thought was an offer. In my mind, you have to have the owner comfortable before you show up to the negotiation. So when you get to that point, you slide a contract on the table with a pen and say, here, not, all right, I got to go back and we got to get, and it took a while. And yeah, all right, was Chris Drury being petty because 2 weeks isn't a long period of time? Maybe, but you got to know your player. You got to understand that that's the way he is. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's petty or not, you got to understand if you're going to have a negotiation with Chris Drury, you better be ready and have everybody comfortable with it while you're there.
Is the problem that they don't have one person in a position of power, that maybe too many cooks type of situation for this team?
Yeah, and I don't want Tom Golisano to get off scot-free here. He has to be comfortable with the contracts, and then all that stuff happens. Now he's got to overpay Thomas Vanek, and I don't have any problem with Thomas Vanek getting that money. What's he going to say? No. But he's had a hard time trying to live up to it and try to play up to the money and that type of thing. And once again, if you open a negotiation with him a year beforehand, maybe you can get him signed before he hits the market and somebody makes him an offer. But the Sabres never in a million years thought anybody would make him an offer. And once again, where's your vision ahead? I've been saying for how long? 6 months, 7 months? I mean, I talked to you many times about it, that somebody is going to make him an offer. So if I know that, and I'm just some idiot.
Every website knows
if I'm
that.
some idiot reporter, how come the Buffalo Sabres don't know that and are shocked when the Edmonton Oilers make an offer to him?
What are other players with the trade deadline coming up that you wouldn't mind leaving this organization?
I've had enough of Max Finnegan. I defended him all last year, and I thought he had a great year last year, but then I didn't like his playoff. And I haven't liked his playoff yet for the most part. And I think he can be soft. I mean, if you can get something for him, I wouldn't mind seeing him go.
Are you looking at this as a situation, Paul, where if the Sabres are a few points out, as they are right now, and I mean, things are still so tight from about 3rd place to about 13th place in the conference. Are you looking at the standings come deadline time and making your decisions based on that, saying we're going to sell off assets at this point?
I don't think they're going to know, just from what you said. I think it's still going to be too tight. The problem with what the hole they're digging themselves into is hurdling over people. Yeah, they're not that far behind, but they have to hurdle over a bunch of teams to get there, which they've already done once. Now they got to do it again. And that's a difficult thing to do, to get 3, 4, 5 teams to stop playing well while you play well to get up there.
And lastly, as the dominoes fall, is Ryan Miller next? With his contract coming up, what are the chances he's with this team in 2 years?
My personal prediction is he's a Detroit Red Wing in 2 years. I think the same thing will happen.
That's just putting 2 and 2 together, right?
That's my personal opinion. There's no fact behind that. I'm going by past performance by the Sabres and how a negotiation will go. Enroth, the young kid goaltender, a lot of scouts are saying, how did we miss him? And the Sabres have him. I just don't see it going well. Now, maybe it will. They did negotiate a contract with Jochen Hecht and got that done, who's a good two-way hockey player, although I don't know where he might have been going, but they did get that done. They did pay Vanek, and that's the problem I have when people say the Sabres are cheap. They did pay Roy. They did pay Vanek. They do pay people sometimes. When Ludman and Tallinder came up, they paid what could have been said overpaid for them. It's just maybe the way they allocate their assets is what we have to question.
Paul Hamilton of WGR Radio joining us. We'll be back in just a moment to close things out with our commentary here on Labatt Buffalo Main Event.
It's so normal to feel this overwhelming pressure to just have to do it all. We understand what that's like. Bristol Home and Bristol Village and any other residents that's out there will tell you, we see it every day, day in and day out. Families come in, and usually it's at that point where they say, we just don't know what to do anymore. So think about it, don't feel as though you're alone, and ask for help. Early intervention is key. Planning ahead is key.
Bristol Home and Bristol Village, assisted living where family matters.
The 3rd annual Labatt Blue USA Hockey Pond Hockey Championship, Eagle River, Wisconsin. Grab your own pond hockey helmet toque in specially marked cases. No purchase necessary, must be at least 21 years of age or older.